cloud. Oh, okay. I'm gonna pause.
Yeah. So, okay, if nobody jumps up, I'm gonna pick on some people. All right, Jamie, you're up. Talk to me. What'd you learn?
We talked about keeping the user in mind and what are some of the steps in the process to get to the end goal of solving their problem with the best of the technology we have available.
Cool. I'm gonna make one slight alteration to what you said. Design thinking is a framework, and we're gonna get into the difference between a framework and a process. You guys know a process means you have to start, what's the process? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? A framework, the first time you go through the framework, it may be linear. Does that make sense? Because it's the first time you do it. But after that, a framework allows you to be more flexible as to where you jump in and gain insights and other things. You don't always have to start over every single time. And that's the difference between a framework and a process. So that's some learning right there. Okay, cool. All right. Everin, talk to me. By the way, it's very good to see you.
Hi, I am excited to be here.
Excellent.
I was actually with a group with Jamie, and we were also with Ming. And I think Ming said it really well, where it's like working towards a solution and like the steps in between to get there.
Right. It's a double diamond. Did you guys talk about anybody talk about the double diamond and what that means?
We didn't, but I do remember that.
Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do, Bill, what are and Bill, maybe they should think about the double diamond as they go into their next room too, right? In the deltas that you're about to tell. So what are they gonna do next for their
Okay.
next getting to know
So,
activity?
everybody, we're gonna throw you back in your rooms for another 5 minutes and talk about what you might think the difference between marketing and design thinking are. The difference between marketing and design thinking. Is it
So
clear?
yeah, and
You
I'll add to that. I'll say if you're solving a design thinking problem, what is the difference between solving a design thinking problem and a marketing problem? And there's a reason why we're having you go through this exercise, and we'll talk a little bit more about it. But there is a difference between solving a problem from a marketing perspective and solving a problem from a design thinking perspective. And I want you guys, now, are you mixing up the rooms or the same room, Bill?
I think I'm gonna keep everybody. No, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Let me recreate. This is
Yeah. Yeah, let's throw it. This is part of everybody getting to know each other a little bit better too, right?
yeah.
Because I know some of y'all know each other and some of y'all don't know each other. So I like the idea of you guys getting to know each other a little bit.
And okay. Okay. I think it's different, more different. Okay.
Ish, different-ish.
Different-ish. Yes. We'll try
All
that
right,
again.
cool.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Everybody, let me go ahead and open the rooms and think about the difference, discuss the difference between marketing and design thinking. And there we go.
Yeah, I was actually about to unmute and be like, can I piggyback off what he said?
Yeah, well, I had
Kind
a
of
feeling, that's my little spider sense coming out. So go ahead.
kind of what our group talked about is we kind of decided that marketing is more directed towards the business itself, like the benefit of the business, while design thinking is more for the benefit of the users itself. If that makes sense.
Nice.
We're gonna talk a little bit about that. That's interesting. It's almost like I need a good debate between you and Martin, right? To argue each other's, stance, right? Yeah, I would put you on why is marketing good, right? Like that, and then I'd or reverse it. But anyways, I do want to hear Ming talk to me. What did you learn in your session?
Yeah, so with Everett and Sedna, I think Sedna put it pretty well at the end. how marketing was kind of like a need to broadcasting a message, and having like a group of people pay attention and to communicate to as many people as possible that are within like your target, I guess, while a design thinking problem may be more centered around creating an experience and so that as mentioned, like the feeling of home and comfort. Was that a
Yeah,
discussion?
I like that. I like what you guys were doing. We're gonna throw you in for 5 more minutes. We're gonna mix it up. Bill, can you mix them up again, ish, and see where we'll let the Zoom gods decide where you land again. In this next one, and I've talked about this a little bit in the intro class. There is a problem where when you ask smart people to come up with answers really quickly and solutions really quickly, what is the issue with that, right? What is the issue by just jumping into solutions really quickly, right? Somebody puts you on the spot, say, hey, we got this big problem, we need you to solve it, go, right? When you're put in that situation and you just have to do that, you know, I want to know what I want you to discuss in your next one is what are the inherent problems in operating that way? And there's a part 2. So somebody take notes on what it is. So what's the issue with jumping to solutions really quickly? And then why are a number of companies struggling with being innovative today? Why are a number of companies struggling to be innovative today? Because design thinking is all about, coming up with new and novel ideas, right? As we're solving some of the wicked problems around us. Why are companies struggling to be innovative? Okay. Does that give you enough to talk about? We're going to actually give you a little longer because I got
I think
part
that,
A and B on
yeah.
that. So let's put 10 minutes. Let's put them in for 10 minutes, 5 minutes per question. But I'm looking for some really good insights when we get back. Okay, y'all?
Awesome.
Okay.
I have opened
Put
the
them in the
room.
rooms, Bill. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and retype that out.
That would be great. And Martin wants to hang out with us. There we go. How'd you like that for my improv?
Nice. Okay, I am.
You want to stop recording?
Oh yeah. Pause. Share. No, wrong one. Crap. Stop share.
I don't think it was specifically specified, but if you are just one person being thrown into having to find a solution, you could struggle with having self-doubt about your own ideas. You're lacking in feedback from others that could be good on building an idea rather than solely focusing on one thing. And I kind of have experience with trying to be one person trying to find a solution of and then having an idea and then building on that and then having to go back after I get feedback from a person and then having to start over basically. So it could be a lot of pressure and it can probably cause a lot of harm.
I like that.
Yes, and we talked about the benefit of bouncing ideas off of each other too. And then the second question was, why are a number of companies struggling to be innovative? We talked about monopolies and just how we have monopolies like 4 airlines right now that are kind of the main ones, or 5 of them, and Disney Corporation owning so many different networks and studios, and Apple, the phone. Like, why create another phone when you know the majority of the country is going to tear you apart, or so monopolies was our main one for why our company's struggling to be innovative.
That's good. We got one more group that hasn't spoken. Who's like to volunteer for that group?
I can.
Excellent. Go, Martin.
Design is all about thinking. It's just a different way of expressing it. So if you've, put 5 minutes thought into something, that's how good the ideas are going to be. So you need time to come up with good ideas. And why do companies fail to innovate? Some of it's quarterly pressure where they have to get products done for the quarter. Otherwise, they don't lay enough people off for the stock market. They're also, projects are so big now that they cost so much money that they're very risk averse to doing new stuff. Some of it could be the people that make the decisions in the end, they're not creative. So maybe a balance of leadership could be different.
Yeah, no, first of all, great answers. So good job. If I haven't picked on you yet, trust me, you'll have your chance before the end of class. Okay. So if I haven't picked on you, your voice will get heard. All right, Jamie. All right. I can feel you have much to share, right? So I'm going to definitely tap into that here. I have been reading a book and it's called The Other Side of Innovation, right? And so you guys can take a picture of it if you want. This is a fantastic book. It's kind of a heady book. You can see this is how I read my books, right? So I'm color coding things and looking at stuff and all this. And in this book, it talks about something called a performance engine. And the performance engine, all companies have them. Initially, when you do a startup, it's all innovation, all innovation, all innovation, because there's nothing. And then you wind up having what's called a performance engine. And a performance engine is, how are we doing? What are the things that we need to do to keep the lights on? Does that make sense? How are we making money? How do we optimize? How do we, get better processes? How do we get better quality products? How do we do this? And companies, after they do their initial innovation, it's all about making more money. So it's all about optimizing and having the performance engine. And in the book, he says it's difficult for companies that are so focused on that performance engine to be innovative because companies are not set up to be innovative. Innovation tends to be disruptive. And all of you are going to be going into companies right now that are very, I think Martin said it, or one group said it about, looking at the quarterly stocks, how are we doing, being so concerned about the, financial market and competition and, inflation and everything else. What do we know about companies who don't innovate?
They died.
They died. We're looking at Blockbuster, right? We're looking at Toys R Us. We're looking at Kodak, right? Kodak, there was a person at Kodak who had the first digital camera and brought it to the leaders at Kodak and said, hey, I've invented this digital camera. How cool. And they go, shut up. We sell and develop film. Why are you bringing in this thing that's going to kill our business? And there were people at Best Buy that said, hey, we really need to move on the streaming service stuff. This is the future. We know this is where it's going to go. And they said, shut up. We make all our money on late fees because people keep our movies. And if you don't go there, if you're not thinking ahead at the same time, you're still trying to make money, you will eventually find yourself not, somebody else, some other company, some new startup is going to take your market share and go, right? So this is the place we're in right now. And design thinking has been around a while, but it is a place to think through these ideas as markets change and as things shift. How do we think differently to put ourselves ahead? Not an easy problem to solve, really easy to jump into marketing and think, oh, the solution is a video or a poster or a mug or some other thing. When you solve problems like that, it's the common response zone, right? Brian has probably used that term before. when you don't think, when you don't investigate, when you don't do your research, I'm putting you on the spot, come up with something now. It's probably or you've heard it again. So this is a new, in that light, we've been doing these hands-on design thinking classes for about 6-7 years now, and we're mixing it up. You guys have the great fortune of being part of a hands-on design thinking class we've never done before. And there's a lot of new things about this class. It's a really awesome class because you're going to find out that Rick, who's been through a number of our design thinking classes, he's been a great supporter of the program. We're going to be solving for Rick himself during this. It's a fantastic brand that, if you do a great job, is going to look fantastic on your portfolio. So that's a win. We're going to dig deep on something we haven't dug into before. We're going to do an all-day Saturday design thinking online session. That's never been done before. So we're going to go for it. We're going to try it. And see how do we possibly get through everything online, and how's that going to work? So you're going to be part, we're drinking the champagne. We used to say eat your own dog food, but who wants to eat dog food, right? So champagne's a lot tastier. So we're going to drink our own champagne, and you're going to get to be a part of the evolution of this class in a new way that no other class before you has done. And with that setup, I'm going to be quiet a little bit and throw it to Bill and Rick so they can share with you some of the things about what you're going to engage in before that.
Okay.
All right, passing the ball.
Hey,
I'm going on mute.
Hey, Jay, sorry about that. Can we get a 5-minute break real quick?
Rick, dang it. Yes.
Yeah, I know, man.
We can let's take a 5-minute bio break then, and we'll see everybody here in about 5 minutes. That sound good?
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, 5-minute bio break then.
Recording. We're going to go through our intros real fast. We have Jay Shu, Bill Ward, and Rick Villa here today. And I'm going to try this again. Jay, take it away.
All right. So obviously for SMU, I've been teaching the intro to UX and hands-on design thinking. I am a UX design strategist, workshop facilitator. I've been a public speaker for a number of years. As some of you may or may not know, I've spoken at South by Southwest a couple times, plus over 50 different conferences and events. I've been a professor for about 23 years. Here's some of my clients that I have worked with. I recently added Coca-Cola to this cool thing. So that's kind of, yeah, a number of clients. So I think, some of you have already known me. We'll talk a little bit more, but I'm going to throw it back to you, Bill.
Okay, you got it. So this is me. I'm the teaching assistant for the class. I'm a design strategist. I've been a university professor for graphic design and a workshop facilitator. But the real star today is Rick.
Class, thank you for letting me kind of crash here. I have been, as Jay said, a supporter of the program for quite some time. I think that this may be my 6th, maybe 7th time here. This is going to be a little bit different, though. Typically, when I come here for a company and advise on that. This is a much different, a much more personal story. So I've spent the last, few years, it says here 20 plus, that's probably accurate, working on different brands, different stages of development, different product launches. These are just a few of the ones I've done. I've worked on many others, but probably the one that, and I've got a couple of things going on here at the same time. Hang on one second. Some of the work that was done has been detailed in a book. Bill, you go to the next slide, please. There's a book called Dragon Soul, and I got sought out by an author who was writing a book on the Dragon Ball franchise itself. And that was one of the bigger properties that I'd worked on during my career. And all of this kind of led to some thought processes, exactly how we're launching brands and the products in play. Bill, will you go to the next slide for me? This is a traditional launch that I would see. And trust me when I say this is very broad stroke. There's a lot of details that go into each and every one of these. But so concept, development, production, schedule said launch, sell this into retail, which means dealing with buyers, and then market to consumers and launch product. And when I say that this is very broad stroke, you don't see design strategy in here, but design strategy is most certainly a huge part of everything that's in here. All right. I can't do development without design strategy. I can't look at production without design strategy. All of these things go into this. So after I left working on larger brands like, Yu-Gi-Oh or Sonic the Hedgehog, things like that, I went and started working in comic books. Bill, will you go to the next slide for me? So I worked with a company for a few years developing books. Next slide, Bill. My first book that I put out was called Praetorian. This came out in 2009. It appeared on Diamond Comics' top 100 graphic novels sales list. The company dissolved in 2010, and the rights got kind of tangled up, and they got returned to me in 2013. I've written 2 follow-up books for it. We haven't done any art. These are all graphic novels. Budgets have kept us from going forward with that. Bill, the next slide. The next book that came out, same time period, was called We the People. Same thing, published in 2009, appeared on Diamond Comics top 100 list. This book was nominated for Indie Comic Book of the Year by Project Fanboy. And same thing, company dissolved. I got the rights back in 2013. When I got the rights back, I had decided instead of going with other publishers, I was going to develop my own. Bill, you hit the next slide for me? Oh, pardon me. Got a little ahead of myself. I have 2 unpublished books. One is Bataan, and Bill, next slide. And the next is Edgar the Eighth Dwarf. Both of these books have been completed. They are just sitting on my shelf. And this is where developing a publisher came in. Bill, the next slide, please. So I developed a brand by the name of Bandito Studios. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go on. Bill, next slide, please. So I started this company as an umbrella for those books. The books needed a place to live in the sense of like legally, they needed a place to live. And that's why I created Bandito. Being a product developer, I also used it as a launching point for me doing consulting for other companies. Rather than just consulting under my name, everything just started working completely under Bandito Studios. Next, Bill. So quickly, what we do is we create comic books for licensing for television or film producers. I do this not just for myself, I've done it for other people as well. And then again, as I said, I consult on various projects, mostly revolving around the entertainment business. Next slide, Bill. So this is the overall Bandito family. I start right in the middle with Bandito Studios, move down to Bandito Press, and go into Bandito Pictures. Next slide, Bill. This is kind of a look at my journey map that I use. So Studios develops the IP as to where Bandito Press publishes said IP, or at least that's the plan. Bandito Pictures is what is producing the overall brands. Next slide, Bill. So part of developing this overall Bandito Studios brand came from this question I was asked as a child all the time. So there may be some of you on this call that know who this is. Some of you might not. This is Pancho Villa. He was a known revolutionary bandit in Mexico, was a big part of their revolution. And as a child, I was asked all the time if I was related to this guy. And it was more of an annoyance than a, yeah, sure. So next slide, Bill. When I decided to embrace that question, whether I was related to him or not, I decided to go with an art style that I personally love, which is the Day of the Dead style. So I go on this big search and I come across this gentleman here, David Lazo, and I see his Bandito character he has. I contact him, having a background in licensing. I contact him to license this product. Can I license this character and use him as my, as my Chester Cheetah? Can he be my mascot for my company? And his answer was no, absolutely not. He had been using this guy for years and he loved him, but he loved my reasoning for doing it. The idea of embracing that last name of Via and creating this character. So he decides, me help work together and develop your own character. And next slide, Bill. So this is what we ended up doing. So this is the overall, these are the three logos I typically use. We've got the mark in the middle, and then we've got the two other brands off to the side. Everything is interchangeable. I really love the idea of just using one name. And so that's why it is Bandito Studios, Press, or Pictures. But one thing started happening as he and I were developing this character. Bill, next slide, please.
There we go.
I wanted to use the character for the website, the homepage, and quick found out that that just wasn't work. There wasn't a healing. And so I called him up and said, hey, I've got this issue. And he tells me, no, what's going on is I didn't design the character for that type of use. Let me design something for you. And he sent me this mock-up that you're looking at now. Bill, next slide, please. So what David did is he painted this. It's called 12 Shots of Justice. He paints this and he does it at a live show. So he's painting it over a weekend, and I'm sitting here watching him as he's posting it to social media. And at first I wasn't sure it was mine, even though it looked like my guy. I wasn't sure it was mine. And I'm literally texting the guy going, hey, I'm seeing this stuff. Is this mine or is this a different one you did? And he's like, no, that's yours. And I was so excited because I loved it. As soon as I saw it, I knew it was perfect. And you might not be able to see it, but it actually is in the corner of my office. It's hanging there. And Bill, next slide. So this is how it ended up looking. And David and I, we had developed this relationship at this point where we could get on the phone, talk about things, and really just, just hammer them out. And so I started using him everywhere, even if it wasn't for Bandito Studios. Next slide, Bill. He developed this for me so I could use on Twitter. And same thing, we just got on the phone, I gave him some ideas, and he took off running with it. Next slide, Bill. So there was, in doing this, again, David is an artist. So he's going out to live shows all the time. He's going out to conventions and he's showing his art. He's got his own web following. So what ends up happening, completely unplanned, is that his fans start reacting to my Bandito. He came back to me and said, listen, because while he is the artist, I own all the rights to what he does for me. That's part of our agreement. So he came back to me and said, hey, can I license that painting for resale? So he actually sold 12 Shots to Justice for several years. He sold it and paid me a royalty, over the course of several years. And as a lover of his art, I said, keep all the money. Keep it all in a gas tank for me. And every time I want some work, we'll just take it out of that gas tank. Next slide, Bill. This is the original piece he did for me, and this is how we got the character. You can see kind of the black and white inked image. Next to it, we see the full color version. What he had done is when he drew the character for me and inked it, he sent that to me. But the actual, huge sheet of paper he used to do that, he ended up doing a watercolor painting on it to sell on his website. And I called him, and this is before we did 12 Shots of Justice. This is the first thing he ever did for me. I bought the painting from him, and this is how I secured the rights for everything, in the future. And this is kind of what ended up happening. Bill, next slide. So we see that there's two paintings he's done for me. He's done what I call the mission painting and then the 12 Shots painting. And next thing I know, over the course of, a few years, because again, guys, I've been developing this over several years. I started getting messages from him from his, when he was out at conventions with his fans. Next slide, Bill. This is David with the cowboy hat on, and he was in Finland, and one of his fans came up and had my Bandito character tattooed to him. The next one is from England, and this fan of his took my 12 shots painting and had it tattooed to his arm. Next slide, Bill. These are two others that of people that came out to his convention. And by this point, David was telling me that your character is the most popular of all my Day of the Dead characters. It's the one that people come up to me the most and show me a tattoo. These are just a few of the pictures I have because he swears to me there's more. These are the only ones I've seen. Next slide, Bill.
Oop, sorry, there we go.
That's all right. Yeah, here we go. These are the last two pictures I have. And I mean, it's incredible because both paintings he did for me are in these tattoos. This last picture here, we can see the mission behind the character. So both of these things, and this is a completely, listen, this is just a happy accident. When I was planning on creating a Chester Cheetah, it had nothing to do with, hey, I'm going to create this thing and I'm going to sell this merchandise. For me, it was just merchandise that I would create for myself, for my own organization. Next slide, please, Bill. These are a couple of the ideas we had for creating just internal, t-shirts and things like that. But again, happy accident. Had no idea that his fan base was going to react the way that they did. So in kind of comes I don't want to call it a problem, but a problem, which is Bandito Studios was created as a hub for my comics, not to sell merchandise for a Day of the Dead art. However, it would be silly of me to turn around and say, well, I'm not going to do that because David and I are still working together on future paintings. We have other characters that we haven't even fully developed yet. I mean, when we went with this first Bandito, he was one of maybe 5 different characters that we developed. This is just the one we decided to focus on. So I know that that in itself is its own separate division of the company. It isn't where I'm developing comics. It's not where I'm publishing comics. It's not where I'm trying to exploit. However, maybe it should be. Maybe it should be because like all of my creations, there is a backstory to the Bandito. There is a reason that he exists the way he exists. There is a complete backstory to that. Next slide, Bill. So this is our basic 2-minute readout. Project is called Building the Bandito Community. It's kind of like an exclusive club for fans of storytelling. The person or group who uses it are people who are inspired by the behind-the-scenes look at storytelling, brand building, or distribution. Currently, the struggle is want to go deeper into the storytelling creative distribution process and need a guide. In a perfect world, we'd be inspired. They would be inspired by the story of Bandito Studios and maybe even create their own stories. This would be awesome because Bandito Studios equals creativity, inspired, and deconstructed. Bill?
Awesome. Awesome. So,
and sorry to talk so fast. Sorry, guys.
Man, that was summarized so much more quickly than I ever thought you could. Let me ask you really fast, Rick, what is the story behind the Bandito character? Can we hear about that a little bit?
Sure. So when I wrote that story, it was actually as David and I were chatting through the development of the character, and he said, tell me his story. And I said, his story is a simple one. He's betrayed by his gang. And when they leave him for dead, it's a shaman that brings him back to life. And now he's out, now he's out not just for vengeance, he's out for justice. And
awesome.
So this was the development. And so, of course, we started writing a script, and it's not like I don't know an animation guy. So, I started talking to an animation guy about some ideas of how to animate this. And at the time, I was working in music. I was in music licensing at the time. So I started going through our music, our archives, and I found the perfect song for the animation. And I started using that and playing it over and over and over as I was writing, writing the story.
Awesome.
So that's a little bit of the background. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, guys. So we are going to set you up very quickly with your challenge. Your challenge is to build an online community as an opportunity to meet like-minded people and to build trust and establish Rick's presence for opportunities for the Bandito Studios brand. So with that, have we sunk the hook? Have we got you guys intrigued? Do I have questions? Which of course we're going to loop back at the end of the presentation tonight, and we're going to get deeper. But are there any initial questions?
Can you stop sharing for a second, Bill?
Oh yeah.
So, so remember, those of you that have had me in class, I always have a method to my madness, right? Are these initial questions that I had you guys do the breakout sessions, are they making more sense now as to why I had you ask those questions? Because looking at this, we go, okay, I got a guy, came up with this cool logo. He wants us to help him build a community. What's the quick solution? If we didn't go through these kind of initial things, what would be the thing? Oh, let's start jumping into marketing, right? Let's just jump in. How can we use this mark? How can we use the logo? How can we use this identity? And jump into marketing stuff. Is that what I want? Is that what we want to go through in this class? What's the name of this class? Hands-on design thinking, right? So the issue is not how do we take this brand and make it cool? It's already cool. We got people branding themselves for life with a brand. How many people do you see walking around with a Coca-Cola tattoo, right? You don't, right? I mean, I guess there probably is people that love Coke that much, but I just say no if I find out it's a Pepsi house. I'm not a Pepsi fan, by the way. So, but the idea is we already know that. Rick's issue is, how do I take this gold mine that I accidentally fell upon and build a community around it? That's a thick, nasty problem to solve, right? That's what we're trying to look in and trying to figure out how to solve, right? Not, can we make t-shirts? We already got that, right? We know that we can put it on t-shirts and mugs and all the other stuff. That's not what we need. We need, how do we develop a community based on this idea around he's building comics and other things, right? And potentially later on, maybe films or TV series and other things. How can we build a community to get this brand out there that then he can use to build the business later on? Because this is coming out of Rick's pocket. Rick's not a millionaire. He's like you and me. I mean, he's got, we're trying to figure out how do we build this thing so he can turn it into something else. Is that helpful to hear? And do you now understand why I said let's compare marketing versus design thinking? Let's compare innovation, because to build a community that lasts, you have to take into consideration that things are changing, right? Have things changed a little bit in our world in the last 2 or 3 years? AI throwing, anybody hear that term AI right now? Is that throwing anything into the mix? Right? Yeah. A couple people shaking their head. Oh, yeah. I think I've heard something about that AI stuff, right? So that's where I want you to go. I don't want you to look to the past. I want you to put on, there we go. We're celebrating already with balloons. I want you to go into the future and say what's possible. Don't give me the standard, obvious answers. We've already thought of a lot of those. I am challenging you, the bright minds that I have in this room, to come up with what's a great way to take something that we know is already great and build a community around it so that Rick can build his business to get comics and creatives and everything out there, right? How can Bandito be a force for good? How can Bandito be a place where creatives can come to learn and grow and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves, right? How might we use some of the developing technologies that's coming out there to help build content, right? To help build tutorials, to help build energy, to help build these things that could make Bandito a place where people want to go hang out. Okay, I'm going to throw it. Was that helpful? Any questions on that? Is that getting your brain in the right space? Okay. Bill, Rick, any comments to add?
I do want to add really fast. One of the reasons I love this is that in order to stand out in today's marketplace, you have to create a presence. You have to be an expert in something, right? In order to rise up and potentially get the jobs you want, to get the kind of opportunities you may want. I look at this as a deeper dive in some ways than our portfolio class, because our portfolio class gives you some very quick hits on how to get your elements out there to start the job hunt. But building a brand, man, if you can demonstrate you have some expertise in a field and you can use some of the things that you may be researching and finding out while you're working on this project for Bandito Studios may apply to yourselves. And that's one of the things that excites me. Everett, please ask that question.
Oh man, my camera looks weird. Okay, sorry. First of all, this is super cool. I grew up on Dragon Ball Z and I read comics and manga and I draw, and this is so cool. So the community, is it like I just don't know like what you're thinking of, or if there's even like a idea for this already. Is it like a community just for like people to like meet up and be like, hey, we both like the same stuff? Or is it like a, hey, y'all come here and learn how to like, or like learn how to like do something? I'm a little bit confused on like what the community would be about specifically.
Can I step in before you answer? That's why you're here. We want to get your ideas.
Okay.
Traditionally, what we would have done is we would have had, Rick had the opportunity to work with Spacey. We brought in Spacey. Spacey had products. Spacey had direction. They had a roadmap. They had personas. We don't have any of that. We are a blank, open slate. This is an opportunity. When I said this is exciting, is you have an opportunity to really think about it from your own perspective, come up with ideas, come up with personas that you think, but we're wanting to back up your stuff. You need to do the research, right? If you come to us and say, we think comic book people that go to, our persona is comic book geeks who buy, $100 worth of comics a week. I don't know. I'm making stuff up, right? Who go to Comic-Con and are into anime and go to, okay, if that's your persona, they have a lot of competition for direction, right? They're already invested in particular things. They only have certain amounts of time and money. What would make them want to be a part of this? Does that make sense? And if you're coming to us with ideas, we want you to be able to back it up, right?
Okay.
I found out I've done the research. I've talked to people in this community. Build your proto persona and then validate the persona and get some real information from real people. This is an opportunity to show people the brand and put your idea out there and then come back to us and say, hey, we really think this is a cool thing. Didn't I tell you though, this is a great portfolio piece? Not only that, but you have a lot of the canvas is wide open because Rick is really open to ideas, right? We had this conversation of, well, who's the persona? We don't know. We absolutely didn't think one of the personas that people would tattoo it, right? That would not have been a normal persona to think that somebody likes the logo so much they want to tattoo it permanently to their body. No way. But that is an indicator. I mean, you can remove tattoos. Pretty dang hard to do. And you know, again, people aren't going around with shell oil, right, on their arm or other things. So it has an emotional thing. We're looking for you guys to dig deep and bring these really cool ideas. But we want you to use the double diamond. We want you to use the design thinking framework and just don't solution right away. I know some of you have some ideas probably already that are swimming through your brain. I want you to avoid that gut reaction, that knee jerk reaction of solutioning right now. I want you to digest this. We're going to follow the framework. That Saturday is going to be a full day workshop where your group brings all the research that you're going to do until we do the workshop to the table. We're going to walk you through the framework, and at the end of it, we're going to narrow down what are some really cool things, and that's what you're going to work on until the final class. Then Rick is going to bring in some of his trusted associates and friends and business folks that he's worked with, and they're going to look at your ideas from the outside and give you feedback based on what your group did. Right? So that's the game plan. But what a great question. And I can tell you, this opportunity has never been done before in this class. The only closest thing was the first time we ever did this class where I did it with Jason Osborne. And I said, hey, you want to do this class that could totally fail and they could ask me never to teach at SMU again? He goes, sure. And that's Jason. Well, Rick is taking that same leap of faith with me and y'all in this class, and we're doing something that's never been done in this class. That's pretty cool, right? That you guys get to be part of that. So thank you for, and that's something personally, I'm going to be doing a class coming up called Networking for Introverts. Right? When the first homework assignment is talk more. So that's where I need you to resist your natural inclination to be quiet and be a little more Jay Shu and talk. So I want to hear from the quiet. We have a room full of introverts. I want you guys are going to have to talk to each other. And I know introverts are really chatty when it's one-on-one. Group situations are a little more intimidating, but let's work on getting out of our comfort zones to talk more. Is that cool? So who wants to go next? What other questions? Because you guys have to have questions.
With the slide, where Rick explains like the goals and the company and all that stuff, you guys will be sharing it with us, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Also,
And
big fan of the stuff you worked on. Just wanna add that real quick.
Thank you. And listen, I have questions. Okay. So, and I'm the creator. I have questions. Okay. So please ask anything you want. Jay is absolutely correct. When it came to doing personas, it was like, well, which direction in personas are we talking about? Are we talking about personas and people that like sci-fi, graphic novels or comedy graphic novels, or people that are willing to tattoo a brand to them? Like, exactly which direction are we going? And that's why we decided, wait a minute, we don't know. And rather than do exactly what Jay's saying, rather than come in and solution it for you and say, just follow the path of this solution, we decided, even as design strategists, we need to step back even further. And we need to allow the class to show us the direction. Because I can tell you the personas I have, but that's not going to do anybody any good. Because at the end of the day, like Jay said, we've already discussed this, but we're beyond that. We don't need our ideas. We need your ideas.
The whole experiment on this is to see what cool creative stuff you guys come up with. That's the whole idea. And the coolest way to learn learn something is to use it and do it. And Rick, are you open? I mean, you've talked a little bit about Bandito and how you got started, but there's some more to it, right? On a personal level, would you like to share that with the class too?
Yeah. So when I was working with the first comic book company, they had my full devotion, and it was a project I was on for several years, because I wasn't just there when the company was starting. I was one of the guys that helped start the company overall. So I spent probably 2 years before we even got into developing our actual graphic novels that ended up being published. In that time, my daughter was born, and that wasn't just a shift as a parent. And if you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. That's not just a shift, in the atmosphere of your house. That's just, things are going to change. My daughter, though, was born with Down syndrome. And so a lot of what I was doing had to change. There was, for me personally, I was thinking, beyond my own lifetime at this point. It's not about ego. Well, pardon me. It's not just about ego. It's there's more to it than that. It's not just what have I done and what's going to be left on a piece of paper. It's what can I do to continue to provide for her long after I'm gone. And so when the comic book company I was with folded, I fought hard to get the rights back to the books that were based on my short stories. I didn't write the scripts, but there were several books that were based on short stories I had written. And so I got those rights back, and then decided that I have to be able to do something that, again, is beyond me, is beyond my lifetime. And again, so when I'm giving all of this info to the artist, and I'm giving him family background, and we're coming up with different ideas, and we saw what was happening with his fans, Jay Shu and I have been talking about this for years. And it's like, these people see his artwork, they see this character, and they just love him for whatever reason. Hey, listen, I love him, but I was there when he was created. That's why I love him. I love him because I love the art style. But for some reason, these people just really, it's like the artist David told me, for whatever reason, my fans love your version of the Bandito, because he has his own version. And he was selling that version long before I came along. But he said, for some reason, your guy is the one they gravitate towards, not mine. It's yours. And so that's why I come to you. And I mean, honestly, I'm humbly asking, help me make sense of this, because that's one of the reasons I showed you the traditional journey map of launching. I don't have a problem launching a product. I've been launching products for many years, but this isn't an easy product to launch, in the sense of, is it a comic? Am I just launching individual comics, or am I launching or launching in unison this separate Bandito character merchandise or book, or what is it? And I'll bring it back to Jay and Bill, because I can, like I said, Jay and I've been talking about this for years, and I can talk about it for years more.
Bill, can you add a little bit, because you've been helping, we've had some sessions. What's the real opportunity for the students here? I mean, this is really one of the most open, situations we've ever had in the hands-on design thinking, right?
Clean slate.
Well, like I said, I mean, for me, trying to create something that excites people and an audience, and moves them to participate. The reason I love this assignment is because, again, it's so close to self-branding to me. And self-branding is so freaking hard. So as you all do research into this community aspect, and learning how to think about this, I'm really hoping I'm going to learn some stuff about this too, and maybe rethink how I sell myself as well. And I hope you all look at this as an opportunity to say, how might I stand out in the marketplace as I look for a job? What are the things I might need to do to create a presence that demonstrate that I have a passion for something or expertise in something? Um, because you need a way to stand out from all the other resumes that are out there. And so to me, being able to tell a story about yourself, about things you're passionate about, I mean, that's also design thinking. And so anyway, that's one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this project.
Yeah, I'm gonna yes and with Bill and say, so I'm 54 years old. Gonna be 55 in December. And in the last 2 years, and we've addressed this in our portfolio class, but the last 2 years have shifted in how people hire people right now. That has completely changed. And it used to be you'd have, if you had an in, like you had a buddy in a company, you might have one interview with a hiring manager because you came recommended, and they go, yeah, okay, everything lines up. Cool. Let's get you started on Monday. Right? That used to be how you could get hired if you had an in at a company. And now, even if you have an in, it's like 4 or 5 interviews. And it can take like a month and a half from where you start till when you get in. When I tried to get a job at Adobe, there were 300 applicants for the position. It took 6 months. I got down to the final 2, and then they went on a hiring freeze. And neither of us got hired after getting through 300 applicants. So the world is changing. And I'm looking for y'all to say, take that into consideration. The way we build communities, Discord and streaming and all these other things that are emerging. Where are those communities? What are their ecosystems like? What are those personas? Why do people stay? Why do people leave? What brings, you know what I mean? All these things, and this is built into your homework that Bill and I kind of and Rick worked on for you. We're going to ask you these kind of questions, and we want you to do deep, deep research and figuring out these things and come prepared. Right? That's another thing about doing a job. I just read an article that you can't just go to their company website anymore and skim it and be prepared for the interview. You've got to really do some deeper research before you go into the interview, because you're sometimes competing with 200-300 applicants. And if you're lucky enough to make it through where you even talk to a recruiter to go in the next slide, you better have your ducks in a row. Does that make sense? So telling your own story, understanding, having them see that you are somebody that can create results, that may become part of the hiring story, is say, hey, you say you're good at branding? Show me. Show me your numbers. Show me how you've created something that resonates with people. Show me some cool user experiences that you have done that people think is really cool. That may be really part of the hiring process. Instead of just accepting the fact that you have a degree in some education, they're going to be looking for more proof points in the future that you can really do what you say you can do before they bring you on. Right now, I'm a contractor. Right? I've been on a contractor for 3 months. Most of our team, I think the team I'm working on now has like 13, 14 people. There are only 6 full-time employees out of 14 people. The rest are contractors. So even if you make it through the interview process, they want to test you out for 6 months to a year before they offer you full-time now. That's how things are changing. So this is a way for you to show people you understand design thinking. You and your team came up with some really cool, innovative ways. And again, this class is probably, in some ways, this class is one of the hardest classes we've ever done. Because when you give somebody design constraints, it makes it easier. Does that make sense? And when you open it up, it makes it really hard because there's lots of choices. The one design constraint we want you to take in, and this is tough, is how do you get this started on a very limited budget? That's your design constraint. Rick does not have $1 million sitting in a bank to make things going. Now, what's cool about that? You probably don't have $1 million sitting in a bank either for your own personal brand. So as Bill said, your learnings from going through this can help you in your own personal journey on how do you get yourself noticed? How do you put your own brand out there? When people look at you and say, wow, show me some of your stuff. Show me what you're doing. Hey, this is it. I've got this going on. I'm able, you're out there making yourself something, right? And that's part of your own brand that you're going to have to do. That may be a big differentiator in getting work in the future, right? Your personal brand is going to say, hey, this person we've never heard of. This person we have heard of. Yes.
And if I may, I think if you go through financial magazines and you read about people who start out with a lot of money, they don't tend to prototype. They don't test ideas. They just go, well, I got the money. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it. And a lot of times they fail because they use their own personal biases to say, oh, yes, people want what I think they want, rather than testing it out first in small batches to say, yeah, I didn't get quite the feedback I wanted on that. And so they have to rejigger things and try something new. And when you have a lot of money, you don't have to test. So I think, again, this bootstrapping, and trying things out. That's what I think we're hoping that you can help Rick with. It's like, what are different strategies you might come up with that help figure out how to navigate a kind of a complex idea, a very sticky problem.
I'm going to riff on that. You guys here are the Wright brothers?
No.
You know who they are?
Easy.
Right? Who's the Wright brothers? They're the guys that invented flight, right? Manned flight for the first time. They competed with a guy named Samuel Langley, I think, right? Is the guy who they competed against. He had everything. He had the best experts. He had tons and tons of money. He had unlimited resources. Yet who were the first? And you know what happened when the Wright brothers won? He quit. He said, well, I'm not the first, so I'm not interested in this anymore. We are looking for young, strappy, hungry, intelligent people to take this on and do something rockin' cool. And when I say young at heart because that's who I am. Even though I'm 54, I inside I'm not, right? I told Rick all the time I got 3 ages. I got 12 years old. That's the kid inside of me that loves superhero movies, right? And then I've got my 35-year-old, which is when I said, yeah, I'm going to conquer the world in business. And then I got my current age, and my current age keeps it real sometimes for me. But my 12-year-old and my 35-year-old still come out and go, F that. Come on, let's do something cool. Don't worry about what anybody says, and let's just make something happen. Right? So Rick, Bill, they're the same way. Right? So regardless, when I say young, I mean young at heart. I'm looking for you to be hungry. I'm looking for you to have some fun. Think how cool this could be if you and your team work together, bust ass, and you're also changing lives. As Rick told you, it's not about him anymore. He has a daughter that is going to need care once he's not here. This is personal to him. And I hope when he shared that with you, you understand this is more than just helping a company. You could literally come up with an idea that changes not only Rick and his family's life, but you could help create a community that helps other artists just like you. Right? Get their ideas into the world. Right? Take those cool things that you've been thinking about and form a community that who knows where it could go. That's pretty cool. You do not get this opportunity very often. And I just am so excited to see what you guys come up with. Because I know people in this group, right? You may be quiet, but you're hungry and you got fire inside you. Talking about you, Ming. I see it, right? Yeah, that's right. You know, bring it. This is your chance. Get rid of that fear, that imposter syndrome, that perfectionism. Do not go there. You are better than that. You got this. Work together as a team. You're not in it by yourself. As Alexis said, right? It's really hard if it was just you trying to come up with this stuff. But the design thinking framework is set up for teams to get the best out of that team. And that's what we're going to do.
So with that, Jay, we may want to give everybody a break so we can get into the content.
Bill, you softy. Holy crap. Giving people a break? What? Come on. Yes. No, absolutely. We need a break. How much time do we want to give them, Bill?
Do you want to give 10 minutes?
You know what? I want you guys to digest. I want you to think about this. Take some time, get some food, get something to drink. Let's take 15 minutes.
Okay.
I want you guys to digest this, and I want you to come back. Challenge, man. That what I don't want is you say, well, this class didn't challenge me. So you know.
Certainly will do that.
All right. Take us through some of these other slides, and then I want to leave time for Rick and to answer some questions from the folks. Cool.
Okay, you want me to jump through and
yeah, let's just jump through some of these slides. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for Q&A.
You got it. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about accessibility really quick. So web accessibility, we're talking about the inclusive practice of removing barriers that prevent interaction or access to websites for people with disabilities. So when they're correctly designed, developed, and edited, everybody has access to information and functionality. There are laws, the Web Accessibility Initiative, WAI, World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, established these guidelines for digital accessibility. So those of you who are interested in going deeper and looking at accessibility as part of maybe your future in design thinking, this will be very important. So there are guides that you can find online. There are the laws, several laws supporting disability for the Rehabilitation Act, Telecommunication Act, Americans with Disabilities, all these. So if you want to dive into this, there will be a lot of reading and a lot of research, and that you can definitely do on your own and go deeper. So accessibility is providing access to everybody, regardless of their disability, be it physical facilities or digital devices and apps. This includes the disabilities of visual, auditory, physical, speech, cognitive, and age-related. So, Jay, wasn't there a famous lawsuit about how, I think it was Target, people weren't able to shop on Target's website if they had low visibility?
Yep.
Okay, so
well, Targets was actually not including not included alternate text for images.
Okay.
So that's where Target lost. It was over $1 million. They had to they were fined. And also another big case is Netflix. The reason Netflix has closed caption is because they lost an accessibility lawsuit. Or yeah. So now I've said this, you know, people, I have used Netflix on, you know, British comedies or especially Scottish films. Man, boy, do I use, you know, the closed captioning on some of that because I go, what did that guy just say? You know, so that allows you to do those things. So, and we have in our slides, when you design for accessibility, you design for everyone, right? Because people who don't have disabilities benefit from that innovation that you come. So that's something else to just be as a source of innovation as you guys are developing these things. Take accessibility into consideration.
Okay, we may need to, just so you guys know, I cannot view the chat when I'm in presentation mode, so have a heads up there. So why is it important? Well, it is the law. It is a requirement. So, you know, you got to do it, or as Jay said, millions of dollars go down the drain. So, plus, we're all aging. I have hearing aids, glasses. Man, I use closed captioning all the time. 1 in 7 people in the world have some sort of disability. And then as we get older, we naturally have disabilities. We have even, it gets even harder to see, harder to hear. So accessibility compliance is growing around the world. And it's an opportunity for innovation. As Jay said, it's like, man, my daughter is actually playing the cello right now. And so a lot of times my wife and I want to watch TV while she's practicing. We have to turn the TV sound off and just read closed captioning so we don't interfere with her playing her music. So yes, it really helps everybody. So now we're going to talk about design thinking. So this book by Tim Brown, Change by Design, man, we got to get past how things look. That is an aspect of design, but we're really talking about product development, marketing strategy, so many more things. Really, it can be applied all the way throughout the process for products and services. And so we want to think about, you know, not only products, but branding and business models for strategy. So, and again, Rick's challenge is taking us to another level there too. So this is also in the Harvard Business Review, trying to help you create better solutions and products, not just take stuff that's off the shelf that's already out there, but create something that is really designed for the problem at hand and not just something anybody has found somewhere. I think you probably saw this in the foundations introduction class, that design thinking has a value of 211% on average to the companies that use it, because they stand out in the marketplace, they stand out from their competitors. And so design thinking is a very important tool. So we had our coffee break, we're going to keep moving. So what is design thinking? Well, the foundation, pardon me, the foundation of design thinking is really empathy and really understanding our customers and end users. We're trying to have the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. By creating empathy, we're trying to understand people who are going through an experience, maybe an experience with our product or service. And when we use these insights, we can create actionable improvements to our product or service or our business.
All right, Bill, empathy for my instructor here. I'm going to take over. If you just do the slides, I'll talk a little bit while you take a drink of water if you need to, man.
Thank you.
Okay, so next slide. Yeah, really, we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, right? The difference between marketing and digital advertising being and being user-centric. Marketing and advertising, we're making people want things, where when we're user-centric, we're making things people want. We're really digging into those needs that people have. That's where I want you to go. What is the need in the community? Right? As you guys are thinking about building out this community, think about the persona that you are picking. what do they need, right? How might Bandito fill a need for a particular audience that is underserved, right? That's something else that you may want to consider as you're figuring out who this persona is. Next. So, and just go all the way through these. Product centric versus user centric, right? Product centric, what products, services can we sell to our customers? What features and functions do our customers want? How can we make money from existing new customers? How can we reach our sales goals and targets, right? That is the efficiency machine that I was talking about in companies, right? It's almost all how do we do these things on the left, right? That's that productivity engine, right? Performance engine that we were talking about. Where user-centric is, what do our customers need to get done? Is there a problem that we can help them solve? And what do our customers expect to solve for them? What do our customers need to see before they want to buy? Right? Before you sign up and give away the most valuable resource humans have on the planet, which is their time, their energy, their commitment, they have to have a compelling need. How are you going to meet that need? Right? That's user-centric. Next. So product-centric, we all, some of you may have had the traditional ketchup bottle where if you're on a date, you may splash your date with ketchup trying to bang on that bottle, right? Or the squeeze bottles, they got rid of that. You can squeeze. The only thing you have to watch out is squeezing too hard because you could have some, fries with your ketchup, right? If you're not too careful on that. Next. So Stephen Jobs, every presentation has to have a Stephen Jobs quote. And we say design is not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. And that's what we want you to dig into. How do communities work? What are some of the longest lasting communities? Why do they exist? Why do they continue to exist throughout all the different time segments? Why do some communities fall? Right? Why, Facebook is kind of shifting out a little bit. You look at the demographic on Facebook and other things, they're shifting to, different, arenas. Why is that happening? Next. Design thinking is user-centered approach to problem solving, right? When we problem solve without thinking about the users, often we're thinking about ourselves. And for all of you that went through my intro class, the one phrase that I repeated over and over and over again was, you are not your user, you are not your user, you are not your user. So even if you're tempted that you may be the persona that you are developing for, remember, you are not your user, and validate with other folks to make sure you're taking your own bias out of it. Does that make sense as you're going through this? Next. So solutions should be desirable, viable, and feasible. Viability has to do with the business. Does this make sense for a business? Feasibility is the tech. Is the tech there to be able to support this idea? Desirability, people are going to want to have to join this community. So there's a lot of cool AI tech and other things that are out there right now. I want you to look at some of those things, look at the upcoming things. This is also a great way for if you haven't dug in and saw all the different AI things that are being developed, take a look at it, see what's going on there. Rick needs content. If we can manage and control his brand, how might he use some AI to develop some cool content for him, right? From a storytelling and brand perspective. What are some of the risks associated with using some of that AI technology, right? What are some of the benefits? What are the risks? Do some risk analysis as you guys are looking into ideas. Next. Design thinking is a framework, not a process. Design thinking is a framework, not a process. Design thinking is a framework, not a process. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in companies and they go, well, we go through the process of design thinking. I go, it's a framework. And it seems like I'm being picky, but there's a really big time component that if you call it a process and think that you have to literally start all over every single time, the people and stakeholders are wanting to compress things more and more and more. Can't we make this shorter? And frameworks can allow for you to do that better than processes. Next. So we talked about the double diamond. It's been around for a while now, right? But this double diamond is discover, define, develop, and deliver, right? At the beginning, you really want to understand the problem you're solving for. Open it up, right? And then narrow it down to find that definition and really get clear on what you're trying to do. Then you want to open it back up with all your ideas, prototype, test, and refine, and then finally deliver that solution. That's the design thinking framework we're going to be going through. Next. There are many design thinking frameworks. I personally was trained at IDEO in San Francisco and am a certified design thinking instructor for IDEO. We went back to Sabre. We developed our own frameworks. We pulled some stuff from IDEO. We pulled some from D School and IBM, and we took what we knew would work at Sabre and developed our design thinking framework there. Next. So it's about how can I work with the other people at my company to make this interdisciplinary. When you're at a company and you're trying to enact design thinking, you have to include the product folks, right? Marketing and business analysts. You have to include the product owners, solution architects, developers, and QA, the people that are doing the dev. Then you have to, of course, include designers, user researchers, accessibility, design strategy. And at the intersection of all those folks is where you have the opportunity to create an amazing experience. Next. The 3 key activities for design thinking are going to be observing, reflecting, and creating, right? We don't start off with create, right? You may have some biases. You may have some ideas going in. Try to resist solutioning up front. Well, how about we gather all this research? We gather the data. Let's be really fact driven, right? So I don't need you to solve problems right now. I need you to think about kind of generally what are some of the communities, who might be the persona that I want to try to develop some things for. We want you to come with at least some proto-personas based on who your team thinks. We would love for you to show up on Saturday with proto-personas that we can talk to. The other thing that we're going to ask you to do that's going to be a challenge is we're going to have you think through the journey of how your particular persona would join the community and stay in the community. Does that make sense? What does that journey look like for them from when they first discover the Bandito community? What does that look like for them? Right? How do they become involved? How do they get engaged? Right? How is it sticky? Right? The community based for your persona. Next. This is the design thinking framework that Jason Osborne and myself developed. Notice the infinite loop that is built into the design, right, on this. This is open. Y'all can steal and take this. This is not IDEO's, it's not IBM's. We developed this for SMU students. So if they had to take something into their company and do something, they could use exactly this framework and use it. We built this for you to use, right? As a person. So you don't have to be IBM. It's versatile enough that you can use it. It's empathize, define, ideate, prototype, validate. These are all parts of the framework where we are going to take you through it and discover all the different activities. And that's what that full day Saturday workshop is going to be about. is walking you through the entire framework. And then we're going to give you a lot of work to do before you have to show it to stakeholders. Okay. So your team is your rock. The people that you're in with, and there's no hiding because the teams are small. Everybody's going to have to figure out a way to take the load, right? And we talked about, putting your head under the boat. We may talk about that again later, but next. So in empathize part of the framework, it's at the beginning. You first seek to understand the situation, experience, and emotion of the people you're trying to help. So you as a team are going to have to figure out, who are we trying to help, right? Then you want to be thinking, how can we observe users in their environments? Go into other communities where they're at, that they might be interested in a community like the Bandito one. Talk to the people if you can, even if it's online, Try to discover as much as you can and use the best tool user experiences have, which is your ears, right? We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We really should be using, our ears more. And for introverts, you guys are pretty good listeners, but I want you to listen to understand. There's a difference between listening so you can speak and listening to understand. Try to understand them as much as possible, and that's real empathy. Next. After we do that, then we start to find, okay, what are we really trying to solve for here, right? Process and reflect. Remember, reflect is one of those activities. Observe, reflect. We're going to reflect now on all the findings that you did. This is where we really want you to start off for Saturday. We really want you to be kind of in this headspace going into Saturday. Understand the type of person you're designing for. Have a sense of their needs that you think you're trying to fulfill. What insights have you discovered, right, as you're doing all your research and trying to empathize with the personas you're bringing to the table? Next. Right? After we do that, then we're going to generate as many ideas as we can. More ideas, the better, right? This is where we get creative. This is where we're collaborating with the other people on the team. And then we're going to evaluate which ideas have been generated that make sense for us to move forward. So the more ideas, the better. The more research and more understanding you have about everything, that's what you want to bring to the table. Don't overthink this, right? We were talking to Martin a little bit before. He said blue sky is one of the hardest challenges you can have. Get that out of your mind, right? That's going to only slow you down. Just focus on the research. Make some decisions as a team as to who you might be, your proto-personas that you guys want to dig into, and some of the things. Get a direction and go. Just get into research mode. Open up your curious mind and just be super curious. Don't overthink this, right? Don't get into paralysis through analysis. Just start doing. Is that helpful? Because, right, sometimes you get so overwhelmed by the task at hand that you stop. I want you to do that. There's no wrong answer. Like, you're not going to come back and Rick's going to go, nope, you're totally wrong. That audience, nah, you guys are smart people. Think who might want this, with the constraints and the information that Rick has given you. Think through that. Next. Then we're going to prototype it. Once we figure out which ideas you're going to move forward, you're going to spend some time as a team coming up with a deck, thinking, what would this look like? Right? And I believe, Bill, we've set it up so that after we give them some time, they're going to come back and show Rick, right? We have it set up in our schedule that we're going to do a first pass. So you're going to show Rick an MVP of your deck, your final deck that you're doing. Rick, myself, and Bill are going to give you some feedback. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give you things to continue to iterate for the final part of the class. Okay, next. Then we're going to validate. That's what the last day is all about. Is Rick is going to bring in some trusted people that have an interest, stakeholders in Bandito, and they're going to ask you questions, listen to what you have done, and give you some feedback on this on the solutions and ideas that you guys have come up with for the class. Next. So Obviously, pink, right? I think I went over the intro class. Power of pink. Pink sticky notes are where we highlight our big pain points, insights, and themes. So as you guys are using the mural boards and other things, that's something I want you to think about. Next. So hopes and fears. Why don't you talk about this, Bill?
You got it. This is one of your homework assignments. You've all done this in the intro class. Everybody's done this, right? Can I get some head nods or, okay, I'm seeing some head nods. Excellent. So yes, want to make sure that you guys understand that that is one of your first week homework assignments. Again, we want to talk about, want to go back to the 2-minute readout. The 2-minute readout is very important to study.
Hey, really quick, can you go back to hopes and fears?
Yes.
Sorry, bud. Yep. In this, what we want you to hopes and fears around is hopes and fears around this project.
Yes.
We want you to as a team to use this as kind of a bonding, getting to know know each other opportunity, and share your hopes and fears regarding this project. Does that make sense? Want to be real vulnerable with each other, real honest with each other, know where you stand, and then just be open. Know that you're probably not alone, and that's okay. There's you're going to be at jobs now where they don't know the answers, and they're going to be looking for you to help them figure this wacky world we're in right now, what to do next. This will not be the first time that you're going to be asked to solve some things that you don't have a lot of insights in right now. Okay, next. 2-minute readout. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah. So again, we've gone through the Bandito Studio framework, but again, you probably want to use this for a lot of your any personal assignments you guys have. You want to go ahead and fill this out to help have that jumping off point for your project. And it can it evolve, Jay? Can this? Can the
Yeah, what a great call out here, Bill. What I would like you to do is take the initial 2-minute readout that Bill gave you and make this personal to the personas that you identify. Does that make sense? Take the essence of the 2-minute readout around the community, because currently they struggle. Who are they? They are the personas that you decide. So you may iterate on this 2-minute readout for your team, for the people you're solving for. Does that make sense? So we want you to use this as a tool and come back to us with another